Hey everyone, thanks for coming on episode 3 of Mastering the DEX. On this episode, we are going to go into what is the DEX as far as the user interface, how to create an account, navigating different tabs. There's a ton of information that's there that may seem a little bit confusing at first, but what we're going to try to do is show you, as it relates to trading, what you really need to pay attention to and what you can kind of ignore, because people tend to get a little bit overwhelmed. Don't worry about it. Don't get overwhelmed. It's fine. George and myself are here to be guides and show you this and many more things. So yeah, let's kick it off. George has actually got his Bitspark website lined up where you can basically set up a wallet and DEX account online. So George is going to basically set us up with that.
Okay, well, thanks guys. Here today we're on the sign up page. Essentially, this is your first portal into Sparkdex, and what I've done here is I've just clicked on create an account, and you'll see here that I've got an account name and I've got a pre-generated password here as well. So this is something which is public, and this is something which on the Bitshares blockchain, this is where people send money to. So unlike Bitcoin where they're sending to an address, this is an account name, and this will be like, if I want to send you some money, I will send it to this name. So we will call this a DEX Masterclass 1. We've got a password there. We will confirm the password. And also just to note here, there's some disclaimers that basically it's your account, your keys, right? So if you lose the keys, there's nothing we can do to help with that. So there's some acknowledgements required in order to make that account there. So I'll just create that account, and you'll see that it's already asked me if I want to create a backup, and you can actually see up the top right here, my new account, DEX Masterclass 1, is currently underway. So that's very exciting there. So what I can do next is take me to the dashboard, and we can just take a look at a few things. So you can see here, this is a number of different currencies of which we can transact with. And if I just click on this dashboard here, I just want to quickly check of the account creation. And you'll see, I'll just move this out of the way a little bit. You'll see that this is on the blockchain here. So this is a real blockchain transaction, create an account, DEX Masterclass 1. And there was a fee paid to create that. We won't get into that. But essentially, this is a real blockchain transaction here. So we know that this account really does exist. Yeah, essentially, here we are on our dashboard page, and we can start populating our portfolio.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, the password that was shown, again, private credentials, kind of goes without saying, but it's worth thinking about. And those credentials can log you into actually any DEX. Obviously, we're showing you the Bitspark DEX with their branding, but if you went to bitshares.org, just so you understand that, one of the cool things about Bitshares is things are very interoperable. So those credentials are very important. If you make a cloud wallet, we could also maybe have another module where we show you a local wallet, which would basically mean you have a file on your computer that you access, and that would be different from cloud wallet. So be aware of when you sign up, if you've signed up for a cloud wallet versus making a desktop wallet. What we shown you was the cloud wallet, right? So it's all an online thing, and it's through a web browser, so it's real simple. But just something to keep in mind, because sometimes people get confused about the different wallets. Sometimes the UI can not it's the drop down is there, but sometimes it's not super obvious. So we just want to give everyone a little bit of a heads up, understand which type of wallet you created. And like George showed us, that's, the activity is a way to verify that it's live.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think, certainly for the beginners, you can just trial out with the cloud wallet like we just showed, username and password, that's it. But we would certainly recommend that, look, if you're going to be putting, some money into this thing, then we would recommend the wallet where you have a file as well. So not only do you need a username and password, but you also need a file in order to access your account. And that's called the advanced wallet. So you can also see that on the dashboard. But what I might do now is we're going to switch over to one of the other accounts. Currently, I don't have any money in this account. So the next step, we're going to be showing you some trading. But what I do want to show you is an account that I made previously which had some money in it, and then we're going to get stuck into trading. Great, so I've just logged into another account here. You'll see DEX Masterclass. It's a slightly different account and it's got 100 Bitshares. And you can see previously I actually I created it as well a few days ago, and it's been funded with 100 Bitshares, so that was a transaction there. But let's have a look at the actual exchange and the trading interface, shall we? I mean, this is the juicy part. This is what the DEX is all about. So firstly, when you first load it for the first time, you get a little intro tutorial, so feel free to step through that if you'd like. For now, I'm just going to skip it because we'll be talking about exactly this. So what you'll see here is the BitUSD to BitShares market, right? So you can see here we're using TradingView as the charting mechanism. This is like industry standard charting. And if you scroll down, you'll see some more information until you get to the order book. So fundamentally, to every market, you always see an order book. And we can see here you got the bids, you got the asks. If we scroll up a little bit, you'll see this is the section where you can buy BitUSD and you can sell BitUSD. And here you can see I have a balance of 100, and you've got the lowest ask and the highest bid here as well. So these are sort of the fundamentals of any exchange that you'd expect to see. You know, you want to see a chart, you want to see an order book, you want to see a order submission form. And in the case of BitShares, everything is a limit order. So you know, be aware of that. But there's also some pretty cool little functionality here and there for traders. So there's a thing called scaled orders. So I can actually you know, place an order, maybe multiple orders. So I can place 10 orders all at the one time, you know, at a price, you know, starting at 25 and ending at 30, you know, a quantity there of 20 or something like that. So that's a cool little thing. We won't get too much into that today. But I also want to point out, just on the right-hand side here, we also have some of the core markets as well. So another thing that you'd expect on the exchanges is, you know, where am I going to see different tabs of different things trading. So here you have different tabs, whether it's USD, the ZEF market, Sparkdex, BTC. Today we're just on the BTS market here with BitUSD, and we can see that there's a number of different pairs here, and they all have different volumes and so on. BitUSD today is quite interesting. But what I also like to do is sometimes, just in my head, to get my head around it, you can actually invert this market as well. So you can sort of see the BitShares to BitUSD price. And you can see it's basically the inverse of the previous one. So it depends, you know, how you want to look at things. But generally, when we talk about the BitShares price on, say, CoinMarketCap or something like that, it's usually quoted in USD. And here you can see, you know, if we're looking at the BitShares as the base pair, you can see that quoted in USD here. So about 3.5 cents.
When they say volume, 44 million, they mean 44 million BTS, right? That's
correct. Yeah, so we can have a look at some of the top indicators. Obviously, this is the core market here. That's what we're looking at. We've got the last price, the last executed trade. We can actually look at some of the previous market trades as well. We'll look at that in a moment. We've got the 24-hour change. So it was a big move overnight, which is interesting. We've got the volume denominated in BitShares. But you'll note that if I actually switch around the markets here, if I switch it to BitUSD BTS, I can see the BitUSD volume as well quoted. So it really depends on what is your base pair that you're looking at, right? So, and that's what the volume will be quoted in. Now you've got some of these other indicators here, which are not going to be relevant for every different pairing on the DEX, because they actually correspond to BitUSD itself. Here on the DEX, we can clearly see that the price that you actually lock up your BitShares at is quoted here. So here we can see, if you just mouse over it, you can see the current external price feed. So that's the current price that people are providing. You know, what is a BitUSD worth? And that's the price at which you lock up your BTS for to create some BitUSD. So if you did want to create some BitUSD, you know, you can do it at that price. And then, of course, if you wanted to say you had some BitUSD and you wanted to redeem the collateral for it, that will happen at the settlement price here. So they're the core things. We've also got sort of margin call prices, which affect, let's say you don't have enough collateral to back the BitUSD which you created, you might get margin called, and that would be, at this price that would happen at. So yeah, these are some of the different indicators, and I mentioned before we can have a look at the market trades. If we just switch over to this tab here, we can see some of the previous trades that have happened, all at different prices, and yeah, it's all on the blockchain there. You can look up via various block explorers if you really did want to, see those individual trades and who was involved, and yeah, everything is very transparent.
One quick question before we get too deep into what the next thing you were going to go into, which is that there, if you notice, the price is a little bit higher on settlement. So, people might be wondering, well, who's issuing the BitUSD and who owns the BitUSD and who, because everyone's still thinking of this, most people, I would imagine, are thinking of this relative to central constructs. So does that difference with like the settlement, like it's a little bit higher than the feed price, is there like a little bit of a fee that's actually going to the blockchain network itself for this process of going in and out of those two assets, or but it is the network itself that's providing that service, so to speak, provided you provide your collateral?
Correct. I mean, there is a parameter in BitUSD called forced settlement offset. So if you settle your trade, there is a slight penalty for doing that. So yeah, you essentially have to pay that. So that's why the settlement price is a little bit different to the feed price and so on. Yeah, I might also add as well, one really interesting thing which I certainly pay attention to is the market depth here, which you can see on various markets. It's just a collection of all the different orders. And there's also the option, see this is a price chart obviously, but you can actually flip that in order to be a depth chart. So if you click show market depth, you'll be able to see there a depth chart instead, which is pretty interesting. You can see if there's any walls involved, at what prices are the different walls. We can see here that there's a wall around 5 cents, something like that, when there's a few sort of larger orders, around that margin. So I think that's also pretty interesting when you're looking at a chart and trying to discern what you want from it. But we can also take a look at maybe some of the other markets as well. So BitCMY is another popular one that is also quite a high volume market. So we can scroll down here, we can see the order book quite active. So there's 1.4 million BTS on this order book, 857,000 BitCMY, which at current market price, I mean, what's that? It's probably over 100,000, something like that. CMY has just depreciated recently, so maybe people are getting out of CMY into Bitshares. But again, same situation here. This CMY coin is a stable coin pegged to the Chinese yuan, and you'll see down here we've also got some other options. Same with Bit Euro, Bit JPY, and a couple of others. But I might actually show you Sparkdex BTC. So Sparkdex BTC obviously is a Bitcoin market. So essentially you can trade your BitShares for Bitcoin. And this is really something this is what you'll really see on most of the centralized exchanges, right? So if you go to Binance, if you go to Poloniex, if you go to Bittrex, ZB.com, the main market pairing for BitShares is against Bitcoin. So, this is another key market which you might want to look at. You can see the pricing here when denominated in Sparkdex BTC to BTS, and you can see market depth and so on. If we do want to deposit some Bitcoin, you've actually got a little tab up here, this little menu, and you'll see some of the other sort of powerful functions which you can do on the DEX. Spotlight is a new one. It's quite interesting here. It gives you sort of an overview of some of the interesting things which are not related to trading, which you can see here on the DEX. So Spotlight's a good one. Before I use the Explore tab as well, you'll see when I go to this tab. This is really a live view of the blockchain, which is super interesting, right? So if you're watching this, you can see all of this stuff is happening in real time, and you can see new blocks being produced here. And this is the block producer. This is the transaction count per block. And there's some pretty cool stats here as well to keep an eye on. 4.5 transactions a second. Pretty sure Bitcoin's limited to 3 transactions a second. So you can see that, you know, when you have a DEX, all of these different orders are taking place. You've got cancel orders, you've got, you know, people placing orders, you know, there's people, you know, updating their margin. That's a different type of order. So it's pretty complicated, and you've got a, you know, a lot of things going on. It's not simple, you know, just, you know, I'm sending a transaction to someone else. And you can actually see transactions happening here for all sorts of different coins on the DEX. So that's pretty exciting as well. This Explore tab is also pretty interesting because you can search, you know, every asset that exists on the blockchain, of which there are, I think, like tens of thousands or something like that. So, you know, before we were looking at the BitUSD market. So if I typed in USD here, I'll come up with a number of different coins which have the word USD in them. And you'll see here BitUSD down here, and the supply and so on. You can type in Argentinian peso, which is another good one. You know, that's the Argentinian peso, unfortunately, is depreciated quite a lot recently. But if you wanted to look at the specifics around that coin, you can have a look here, max supply and so on. So this gives you a lot of, you know, information about the different cryptocurrencies that you might be interested in. But if we go back to the Explore page, you can also search accounts as well. So previously we made a DEX Masterclass 1 account. There you go, there it is. So you can actually see the ID on the blockchain. And if you wanted to maybe have a look at some of the Bitspark accounts, you know, some of them are there as well. So you know, you can search anything that you want on the blockchain pretty easily. So think of the Explore page like a block explorer. That's essentially what it is, right? Like usually you have to go to like some other website to go and find out information about the blockchain, but actually on Sparkdex, you know, everything is built into the DEX itself. There's some other sort of things here which we'll just touch upon briefly. Witnesses, we talked a little bit in the previous episodes about delegated proof of stake. Essentially, these are the witnesses that are verifying blocks, and they are voted in by the stakeholders in Bitshares, so that you can view all of them on Sparkdex. The committee as well. The committee is also voted in, and that is a number of accounts which are sort of be able to set the fees. That's all they can really do, is they can set fees and parameters. So you can keep track of, you know, who's in that as well. And sort of the markets page as well is just a sort of interesting overview of the different markets, which we've already seen. And if you ever have any questions about all the different operations on the blockchain and the fees, people always ask about fees. What's the fee? You know, here are all the different fees for the different types of transactions that you can do on the blockchain. Long story short is that you know, fees are pretty damn cheap. So if you're dealing with a centralized exchange, often there'll be like upwards of 0.2%, can be above 1% sometimes with centralized exchanges. Whereas here we're talking like fractions of a bit share, right? And a BTS is worth 4 cents, right? So, you know, if you're paying 0.36 of a bit share, you're paying 36% of 4 cents. So, you know, it's very small.
That's retail. That's retail. There's like a lifetime membership tab where if you pay a certain fee, you can reduce that fee even more. And there's also a way to sort of like a referral fee, almost like affiliate type situation. It's pretty subtle. It's not overly pushed, which is probably kind of a good thing, but it's there. The functionality is there. And it's like, as you can see very clearly, the fees are drastically different if you go lifetime, right? So
drastically different. I mean, you know, some cases, I think it's like 10 times less for some of the options there. So yeah, lifetime member. Yeah, if you trade a lot, you're going to be buying a lifetime membership, and you pay for that with BTS. So that's sort of a little bit of an overview about the Explore page. If I want to deposit, I'll just move this out of the way again. I will give an option here. Let's say I want to deposit Bitcoin, BTC. The gateway is Sparkdex, and boom, I'm given a deposit address. So this is really how you connect these different blockchains together, right? So you're currently on Sparkdex. You're currently engaging a lot with the Bitshares and the stablecoins, but you might want to just trade Bitcoin. And this is what I also say to people is, look, even if you just want to trade Bitcoin, that is fine. This is fundamentally a better way to trade Bitcoin because everything is public. Everything is provable. Everything's on chain. So if you are trading on some exchange, right, some centralized exchange, Coinbase or whatever, they can lock your account. They can maybe they do some stuff behind the scenes with their database, and maybe there's been occasions in the past where exchanges have maybe invented some money to go and trade with, like we're talking like Quadriga in Canada there as well. So having everything public is super important. So even if you just want to trade Bitcoin, it makes sense that this would be a place to trade Bitcoin. And QR code, deposit, right? Send your Bitcoin there, done. You can do exactly the same thing with Ethereum. So you check Ethereum, go Sparkdex, and we'll generate an address for you there as well. So here you go. Your minimum deposit amount and an Ether address. So yeah, I mean, if you want to deposit Ethereum, you'll get your Ethereum coin deposited into your account very, very quickly. Just like you would at any other exchange. But that's how it works for deposits. Similar kind of concept we've got for withdrawals. Again, withdraw. What do you want to withdraw? Currently, I don't have any Bitcoin, so actually I can't withdraw anything. But similar process here, where you would see BTC come up, and you'd be able to nominate the address that you want to withdraw your Bitcoin to. So that's sort of how the functionality works for that. Send transaction is another very important thing to cover. So if I want to send between different accounts, I can easily do this. So let's say I want to send to, with a DEX Masterclass account, we can send to the, say, Bitspark deposit account. It'll come up here, Bitspark deposit as a lifetime member. Yep, that's the one. How much do I want to send? I don't know, let's say like 2 BTS, that's what I've got, and I can send a message, just hello, and you can see I've got a fee here as well. If I press send, it's going to ask me to confirm my password, which I previously have on a clipboard here, so we'll just do that. It's going from DEX Masterclass to Bitspark deposit, a little message, confirm, boom, and you'll see in a moment that that's all sent out. There we go, transaction confirmed, DEX Masterclass sent, and we can actually see it here appear on our activity page as well. So if we want to go and see some information about that particular transaction, this was the block it was included in, and we can actually see it here. It's one of the transactions for this particular block, and you can see that there was a number of other transactions associated with this block. But that's provable that everything is really happening in real time, which is pretty cool. You've also got the download history option here. Personally, I find this very interesting for certainly us, because we're sort of power users. We're trading a lot, and we need to keep track of stuff for accounting. So the download history option also very, very good, and you can get your information in a CSV, I think it is. CSV or an Excel spreadsheet. So that makes sense as well. So what we might maybe finish off here is there's a couple of other different options on the menu here for the DEX. We've got the news section. So if you want to keep abreast of what's happening in the Bitshares ecosystem, it's all happening here. We also have sort of the assets view. That shows you the number of assets which I've created. I haven't created any on this account, so it's not going to show any here. Membership stats is if I've bought a lifetime account, I can buy a lifetime subscription there for about 3,000 Bitshares, and I can get the cheaper discounted fees and so on. We've also got voting here as well. I actually missed that one, voting. So just quickly passing over voting. Bitshares has on-chain governance functions. So if I click voting, I'm able to see some of the options here for people voting. And you can see I can vote for committee members. I can vote for different worker proposals, which are, when people want to get paid for the blockchain to do something. There's a number here as well. Again, I can also vote for the witnesses. But I think that is a little bit beyond the scope of what we really want to show you today with the exchange. But it is there. We're going to certainly get into that at a later stage as well.
Yeah, I think. Well, maybe like, why have you chosen those pairs? Like you have Sparkdex.btc. With that, if I click the plus, you can basically add more pairs, right? So you've just created this as a default. Anyone can come in and add more markets. And maybe I don't think we actually went over that, was find markets. That might be something to talk about.
Yeah, so I guess just quickly to add on some of the trading stuff, we'll get into the difference between, say, volume and liquidity as well. What does that mean? Essentially, what really matters is liquidity, because that's what means that you can trade or not, right? Like, you can have $1 billion of volume, and we see this all the time on many of the CoinMarketCap fake exchanges, where they'll have like $1 trillion of volume or something, and then you'll actually look at their order book and there'll be like 0.1 of a Bitcoin on there. So it's like, trading $1 trillion and there's only 0.1 of a Bitcoin sounds like it's just going back and forth and it's not really real. So what I would recommend people do is have a look at the market depths on many of these. So if we're also talking about find markets as well, this is an interesting one. So I can find a market for any given pairing on the DEX. So let's say I would, if I'm on the My Markets tab, you see I'm on the BTS, right? But let's say I want to find USD to, say, Zeph as a market pairing. You'll see here that this is the one which I want. So I can click that. Boom, now we're on the Zeph to BitUSD market, and we can see here that we've got an order book, we've got some pricing, we've got some market trades and so on. But that's all from the Find Markets tab, and you can customize what currency you want to be able to find here as well. So that's another little interesting thing, that if you can't find what you're looking for on this page, you can always find it on this page. I think that wraps it up for today's episode, and yeah, we'll be back again next time with some interesting stuff on how to make money, trading strategies, these sorts of things. So
yeah, and I think everyone keep questions in mind as always with any of these, because as you were going through this, I was just thinking it'd be awesome to take all the questions people have, and then we could have like bonus modules. Obviously, you guys can tell I'm kind of brainstorming as we go. That's how I work. But yeah, no, so we'll collect any questions. The more people can interact with these videos and give us your input, the more likely it is we can sort of, batch any sort of gaps. We know there's a lot of data here, but we want to just, George and I were talking before this about, we don't want to take you too deep too soon. So if you have questions, great. We will, put those into a nice batched module. Maybe we'll have multiple of those. Frankly, that could be an ongoing conversation. So keep it in mind, and we'll add in any details as we go. So yeah, thanks again.
Awesome. See you later.